Hey, so there's a trend again. Well, it depends what we count as a trend, but certainly there was a trend of people killing their plants again in their car,
We did a landscape job this morning, planting job, and what's it called? Cardening.
which is a nice change from cutting them in half. I mean, with the avocados. I didn't cut mine in half and it's really healthy. I mean, it's in desperate need of water. It could be healthier, okay? So maybe not cutting your plants in half means something. I don't know. Anyways, so as I was finishing my previous video's editing process, and as any self-respecting YouTuber will do, having an anxiety attack about what my next topic will be, my perfectly curated TikTok For You page did not come to my rescue this time, but my Google News page was like, well, hey, here is a really stupid article, but you might be interested. And, well, yeah, I was.
Cardening is exactly what you think it is, gardening in cars. And it has been trending on social media for several months now. From planting up the glove compartment area with succulents to hanging plants instead of a car freshener, these mini gardens really push the boundaries of indoor gardening ideas.
So I instantly clicked on the article about the geniusly named Cardening. I mean, if there's one thing I will pay attention to in titles, it's a pun.
Cardening, which is car gardening.
I don't even need the rest of the title, like The Rise of Cardening. First of all, it perfectly mimics my The Rise of Houseplant Culture video title, which, okay, I appreciate it. But I don't need the other words, actually. Cardening is pretty much enough for me to know what's it about. Or there's this title which is in Slovak, because there aren't too many articles with gardening in the title, so I wonder why. Well, let's take a look at what gardening really is, and what better way to do it than with the help of search engines and social media. We will need a few articles, pictures, videos to get to the bottom of it, and it shouldn't be too deep.
Cardening is real.
If we search for gardening, there are some pictures you're definitely gonna encounter, like those cacti planted in the dashboard or freshly sowed grass just beginning to grow. So basically, gardening means gardening and keeping houseplants in your car.
Forget air fresheners and family car stickers. Drivers are now creating mini garden beds inside their vehicles in a bizarre trend that's sweeping social media. Plant enthusiasts are jumping on the gardening craze by transforming their dashboards into a planter filled with cactuses, succulents, and even a bonsai.
Okay, easy to understand. I know red flags are being thrown in the air by all of you by now, but we'll get to those too. It seems that the most popular branch of gardening is planting directly into your dashboard, which sounds so much fun.
Look in the front seat.
Dude, look, they hang from their glove compartment. Oh my god.
Cardening is real.
So some cars, definitely not all of them, except if you want to cut it out for yourself, have some sort of a hole in the dashboard, which might seem like the perfect planting area if you are crazy / determined enough.
I wanted to make my car dashboard a little bit more interesting, and I think I have the perfect idea.
The keyword is might seem.
I got these cute little plants from IKEA. They were really affordable, and I'm gonna put them on my dash. I put the plants in my dash, and I think it looks great.
So the concept is very simple. Put dirt in the dashboard, put plants in the dirt, done your gardening, and now you can take pictures and videos of it. Put it on Instagram and Twitter and wait for the algorithm to magically boost your content, because it's the biggest trend. But wait, gardening doesn't end when you plant something. You have to care for the plant and ensure all of its needs are met, unless it will suffer or even worse, die. I mean, just look at how many jokes and memes are uploaded to social media making fun of plant parents killing their plants in their thermal-regulated homes. Okay, so there are definitely some restrictions while planting living plants into your car, in this case into your dashboard. First up, you need to make sure that your plants will get enough water to survive. I would say enough water to thrive, but like, let's bring down our expectations right at the get-go. Surviving will be just enough for us right now. You know, when you're planting containers outside, water running out of pots is not the biggest concerns, but it becomes a priority when we change up the outdoors for indoors. Inside, you don't really want to have running water because that's a really nice recipe for disaster, starting with ruining your furniture and your carpet and ending with your whole house collapsing on you. So you definitely don't want to spill water in your car. Now, there's a wide variety of dishes to use with your pots and containers, but if you're directly planting into a hole in your car and not a separate pot, there is something else you have to think about and you have to do. So the first thing needed is some sort of waterproof lining for the soil, like some bendable plastic sheet which is flexible enough to fill out the dashboard hole, but durable enough that the weight of the soil, the plant material, and the water will not damage it. So the next question is overwatering. Since the water reservoir is not separate from the soil mass, as in the case of pots with dishes, there is no possibility just to easily yank the water out from the pots for the roots not to sit in water at all times and drown. Once you accidentally overwater your plant, you'll have to wait until all that water is either picked up by your plant, which is the best case scenario to be honest, either it just simply evaporates, which is like still good, and also it can easily happen because in the summertime cars can easily heat up. Either your plant dehydrates because the excess amount of moisture rots your roots away. I feel like my camera is not level right now, I don't know why. But we're getting ahead of ourselves and I'm already here listing all the problems with Cardening. I barely touched what Cardening is and I'm already bringing you down as I would with any recent movie reviews if I would be a movie review YouTuber. You know, because every movie equals bad except Malignant. Oh my god, it was fire, it was so good, it was perfect. I'm ready to die on that hill, and also Encanto. We don't talk about Bruno. So at first, let's check out the internet tool that has already helped me in doing this video. Says I already searched for terms like gardening, houseplants, monstera, avocado on Google Trends, and every time it showed me a massive amount of searches which helped me to pinpoint a date when a trend was, like, for example, really popular. So let's see, gardening. Okay, so clearly we are dealing with a widely popular trend known by everyone on this planet. And just for funsies, let's compare it with regular gardening. Yeah, nice. So let's bring another question into the picture. Why was gardening a flop? Why wasn't it picked up as any other plant trend? What's the difference between growing plants in your car and growing a plant with leaves with more holes than a leaf? Let's observe plant-related trends together. Let's see how a seed of a trend is sown, how it becomes viral and blooms, and eventually how it wilts away. Let's compare actual trends that happened with gardening. Well, I'm constantly jumping ahead of myself, but how did we get here? Let's start where every other plant trend starts, and do that by exploring the first steps of a trend that is widely spread, and we're already past the days of its glory, according to me. That's the Monstera mania. More specifically, I'm gonna talk about the variegated Monstera. Yes, the term variegated Monstera can mean a lot of things, and I'm gonna use it to mean different things at different times, so variegated Monstera it is, whatever. So even before the modern day houseplant craze, the Monstera deliciosa was a plant that gained a pretty big following. I mean, it's understandable. If someone had a decent houseplant collection, there was a big chance they had a Monstera deliciosa. It's a beautiful plant, the leaves can grow huge and bring the jungle vibes into your home. Even if the plant is not mature, a juvenile leaf is still beautiful. The plant itself is not something to stress about in every second of your existence, because it can easily handle shade, it can tolerate a range of humidity, and also if you forget to water it, it will show it. It will be floppy. The leaves will be like meh. So just water it and you're ready to go for another month. Finally, it's not that hard to come by, and you can share it with your plant friends because it can be easily propagated by cuttings. So all in all, it's a great plant to silently make its way into a lot of plant collections and secretly spread across the world. But what's better than a great houseplant? The same houseplant but variegated. This is an age-old thing. By making something variegated, you give a plus to it, and it's a very useful plus. In gardening, there's a lot of discussion about color and contrast and stuff, so naturally a leaf with white parts is going to be something bringing contrast and an interesting look to your space. Now we're getting into the trend category. A variegated houseplant can be considered more special. You can feel like it's more valuable just because of a mutation. Well, that's exactly what happened to the Monstera thing. I read somewhere that 3 things are needed for a trend to be trendy, and it was your everyday basic article, so it's everything but scientific. Regardless, I like to apply these things for our variegated Monstera case here. So these things are the stickiness factor, I told you it's not scientific, connecting with influential people and not overthinking it. So the stickiness factor in the case of the variegated Monstera can be the fact that it's variegated and it's more rare, therefore it's more rare than your regular green Monstera. Now the influence is very easy on social media. Once this Monstera with beautiful variegation pops up on Instagram, there's no turning back. An aesthetic shot of a variegated Monstera in a corner of a minimalistic room is enough to go viral because it's beautiful, cool, rare, and suddenly trendy too. And now the last part, not overthinking it. Well, it's really simple. Spice was added to the Monstera in the form of variegation, and boom, it's ready to take over the world. Why do I feel the need to fidget when I'm filming? But wait, I promised you a tale of deception. The variegated Monstera has a catch, which actually made it even more interesting and trendy, and is the fact that not all variegated Monsteras are made equal. Yeah, I said it. There's a cheaper but worse option and a more expensive superior version. Okay, I'm not gonna go into the 2 types of variegations that are present in these 2 forms of Monsteras because I'm already talking about Monsteras instead of growing grass in your car. But the thing is, there's the Monstera borsigiana albo variegata, also known as the Monstera albo. Catchy phrase popularized by a drama channel disguised as a plant channel. So this one is inferior to the other one simply because it's more of a vine, the leaves cannot get super big, and also the variegation is not stable, and you can end up with like not variegation. Why would anyone want that? And also you can end up on the other end of the spectrum. You can end up with a fully variegated leaf, which is actually beautiful, but detrimental to the health of the plant. On the other hand, there is the Monstera deliciosa Thai constellation, a plant that, based on the opinion of plant people, is superior to the albo because all of the downsides of the albo are corrected in this plant. Definitely not a stretchy, whining plant, a possibility of huge leaves, stable variegation. Is there anything more to wish for? I guess not. So people treat it with superiority and then end up buying the albo anyways because it's cheaper, and side note, could be a lot cheaper, but the business people want to artificially elongate the trendiness of this plant by withholding their huge stock and releasing only a little amount of shitty plants at a time to the public. So that's a recipe for a trend to start. Let's look at Cardening from this angle. With the Monstera, we started with the basic popular idea, the Monstera deliciosa, and by making it extra, we get a trend. While with gardening, we have the starting point, which is regular gardening, and I think that's a good point to start because if you think about it, it's already popular. Also, we have some helping factors. The lockdowns are definitely one of them. Lockdowns made gardening and houseplant culture grow like weeds after a rainy day. Gardening was on the rise even without the paragraphics, so we're good. So if Monstera deliciosa equals gardening and houseplant culture, a variegated Monstera equals gardening with added spice and stickiness factor, in this case, gardening in your car. To be honest, I cannot say a lot about the influence and the people who actually popularized this trend for good reasons. So we are at our second point, and the gardening as a trend is already experiencing its first problems. So in the age of influencers, Trends are perpetuated by pictures on social media, so let's look at gardening from this angle. Let's look at gardening pictures. The first thing you might notice is there's not a lot of gardening pictures on the internet. A lot of articles reuse the same pictures of cacti and succulents planted into the glove compartment, and by scrolling the Google Images page, you'll quickly run out of gardening pictures, which means the trend was not picked up. End of the video. Bye. Okay, I have more things to say. So this section is called tricking you into believing you already did this trend. So the third trend factor on our very scientific list was not overthinking it, and well, let me say gardening does not fail in this section. Is definitely not overthinking whatever is going on here, because you can describe it really easily. It's actually a very simple concept, and basically anyone can do it who owns a car. And let me push this even further. Probably you did this trend already, microdosed at least, because in my opinion, if you put any plant in your car, you're already gardening, and most probably you already brought home a plant from a garden center.
They're so f***ing happy with those plants. I've never seen such happy f***ing plants. Oh, the wind broke one.
I told you, mind-blowing. So let's open another can of worms, yum. So, if you're somewhat of an orchid grower, this might sound familiar to you. If you're not, this might be a more of an obscure trend. Anyways, first things first, ice watering was a trend, or should I say is a trend, and it's traveling on the same train that all the other 5-minute craft life hacks, advertised as an easier than regular watering care tip and making a lot of sense if you're not very knowledgeable in orchids. This trend was birthed for success and going viral.
Watering your Just Add Ice Phalaenopsis orchid with 3 ice cubes weekly is the best and easiest way to care for your orchid plant.
The basic idea is that you can forget about all the orchid watering care tips you've ever heard and just stick to these very easy rules of company called Just Add Ice. As their name suggests, just add ice to your orchids a few times a month and your orchid is ready to go, you're done. On their website, they say,
watering a Just Add Ice orchid couldn't be easier. All you need is 3 ice cubes once a week for a full-sized Phalaenopsis orchid. Watering a tropical plant with ice might seem strange, but independent research has shown watering with ice has no negative effects on orchids. If you choose to use water, be sure to use no more than 1/4 a cup for a full-sized orchid. Otherwise, you run the risk of overwatering, which can cause root rot. Watering with ice is the easiest and most convenient way to ensure your orchid gets just the right amount of water, not too much or too little.
Now, if you've been around on OrchidTube for more than 10 minutes, most probably all you see is red flags, because this trend life hack makes just as much sense as any other 5-minute craft, and well, that says a lot.
One of the fastest ways to kill an orchid is to just add ice.
So I have to add, the research they mention is real, and according to it, basically the internal root temperature won't go below 4 degrees Celsius if you're watering your orchids with ice, and that's definitely is not freezing.
Temperature is also important when caring for your Just Add Ice orchid.
I also tried watering 3 orchids just as an experiment and fun, only with ice for a few months. And if anything, bad plant care tips from random people and companies is one rabbit hole to dive into for content, for creators, for fast and easy content. Wow, that made a lot of sense. So naturally some creators reacted to watering with ice, including myself, as I already told you. That concludes everything you need to know about ice watering for this video, so let's look at the trendiness now. So this whole Just Add Ice thing started quite a few years back, and it seems like it's not losing from its trendiness. The success of the company was heavily based on a viral life hack, and is successfully not going away. Their growth is steady. This trend didn't come with a huge spike in popularity and then ending with a quick decline. Rather, it's going strong with a steady pace. So it's definitely trending, but it's rather sped out than being quick. So if we go back to Cardening to make a comparison, and we believe those article titles, we should see a regular income of Cardening pictures, videos, articles, whether it's a quick success or a slow but steady growth.
With everyone building sourdough starters and learning how to knit, bartend, draw, paint, or anything else to decompress during the pandemic, cardening was one of the fascinating inventions. However, just because it's strange and different doesn't mean it lacks practical use.
As cardening already failed at being something that can become trendy, it's not a surprise there's a very limited amount of anything about it on the internet. There are definitely some articles saying it's crazy popular and it's spreading like a wildfire. There's actually no evidence to back these claims up. The pictures and videos of people actually cardening is extremely low. I wanted to be like, okay, we have a beginning of a trend and do a comparison with this Monstera Mania thing. Then there's the middle part, the trending of a trend. Let's do a comparison with watering orchids with ice. And then the last part is the trend becoming unalive. So let's compare cardening with another plant trend like the ridiculously overpriced biorb terrarium that looks fancy but does basically nothing, or cutting avocado seedlings. But no, I won't force this narrative here because cardening was clearly anything but a trend, so it cannot even end, or rather it already ended when it started, so no, nothing like that. So no, that's the only reason this video is not an hour long like my other video essays, and definitely not the fact that there is barely anything to say about cardening. Instead, let's talk about all the characteristics of cardening.
I also put this Monstera plant on the passenger side floor. I really like how it goes over the gear shifter and the cup holders. It makes me feel like I'm in a jungle or something. It just feels so natural and like fun, you know?
Where it fails to be not only desirable but doable also.
As you can see, it's super... Oh my god!
If you want to observe cardening from a gardening and houseplant viewpoint, first we have to go through basic plant care.
I swear that never happens.
Here's the part where regular gardening leaves the chat, opening space up for houseplant culture, since gardening is basically caring for plants in an enclosed environment, and well, houseplant culture is also that. Okay, so I was coughing. Turns out I didn't drink the whole time I was filming this video. Drink your water. The key to keep houseplants alive comes down to a few factors, and if you don't own a very rare and extra houseplant, rare meaning rare and not expensive, which needs the exact same conditions as being 10 meters away from a Venezuelan waterfall on a cliff, you don't even have to think about all these care factors. You see? I don't know, what's with my voice? Maybe my voice is not used to making YouTube videos anymore. A lot of easy houseplants were bred to be very tolerant to not exactly ideal conditions, in some cases even thrive in them. But also some other houseplants didn't even need breeding to thrive in our home conditions. They just naturally have the tolerance to the room equivalent of a Karen. And every houseplant beginner will see these plants on endless Instagram posts about beginner-proof houseplant list, snake plant, ZZ plant, pothos, spider plant, all these plants are in this category. I'm just like a houseplant, I need my water. I'm a Monstera. No, I need more water. Talking about not ideal humidity levels or light conditions, can you think about a small enclosed space with not ideal humidity levels, light conditions, or temperature range, and it's connected to this video? Exactly, a car.
I prefer to have real plants in my car because they provide me with fresh air as I drive.
So let's do some kind of a list of factors that affect your houseplant and how those factors are affected by not being in a home, but in a car. Okay, red flags. I know so many red flags. A car is full of windows, and especially if you do the gardening that was deemed viral by those 3 articles, and you're gardening in your dashboard, the light conditions will be much closer to an outdoor area rather than indoors. Indoor houseplants are oftentimes plants from a tropical place which usually grow under the canopy of large trees. This ensures that they can tolerate the lower light conditions a home can provide. Now, a front window of a car is very different. It can not only let light through and make your plant feel like it's outside in the middle of a bare field, but also can magnify light and burn or melt stuff. So it's only the first factor and we already have a problem.
And if you park in full sun, they should love it.
So in all, from this viewpoint is very not ideal for any plant. But if you want to think about the toughest plants out there, some cactus or some succulent with a thick hairy or waxy coating could maybe survive if no focused beam of light is hitting the plant. And I didn't even touch the possibility of parking your car in a garage where there is as little light as possible.
And if you park in full sun, they should love it. Or shade.
What you gonna do about that? This was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw Cardening the first time. We all know how temperature is just fine for tropical houseplants indoors because they are basically fine with receiving the same temperatures as we live in. But most people don't live in their cars. There is no temperature control all the time in an average car. There are winter temperatures, summer temperatures, different light situations heating up the inside of your car very differently at different times. Temperatures in a car can wildly vary. I'm just gonna assume there is not really a plant that will survive that abuse.
Really cold, really hot, and probably not getting much attention, but they should do okay.
Let's imagine a scenario. On a hot summer day, you leave your car out in the hot summer sun. The scorching heat inside the car will kill instantly every plant you put there.
Technically, there's nothing wrong with gardening where plants are concerned. If your car is typically parked in a sunny spot, cacti and succulents will do just fine in there, and they won't mind the temperature fluctuations between day and night.
Don't even put fake plants into your car, those will melt too. Oh no, I'm not even going close to that, no. Usually, if we're talking about soil and plant care, the focus of the conversation is on the content of the soil, like orchids need bark chips or sphagnum moss, tropical houseplants need airy, well-draining, rich soil, succulents need some kind of succulent mix, usually containing a lot of perlite or sand. In this case though, there is no specific houseplant category to cater soil characteristics to, but we have a different angle, and this angle is closely related to another care factor, and that is watering. So I think the light situation is very different right now compared to the start of this video, but whatever. The reason the soil and watering in gardening terms is closely related is the actual reservoir for the soil and the water. Yeah, watering different plants at different times and setting up your watering regime to fit every houseplant's need is important. But you know what's more important than a rotten pothos plant? A fully functional car without dirt stains and leaking water.
From cacti to air plants, succulents, palms, and snake plants, varieties that are neither delicate nor need constant attention will grow best in cars. Furthermore, the above types of plants don't need constant watering, so they don't require much extra work each day before you drive off to work.
So, houseplants indoors in a pot, easy. The soil stays in a pot, the water leaking out from the pot is easily managed by the use of plant saucers or decorative containers. The car version of that is a bit more adventurous, let's say. So option 1 is you have a dip in your dashboard, which is questionably perfect for gardening, but decidedly perfect for not letting water seep through into your glove compartment. You put soil in the dip, then you plant your chosen warrior into it, and you can happily water it anytime. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm not saying you wouldn't ruin your dashboard forever. I'm saying it's a questionably safe option. Oh, also, and you can now practice watering plants without a drainage hole. That's spicy. Option 2 is even more adventurous. The scenario this time is not having a dip in your dashboard, so you decide to cut a hole into it. Now, I'm not a car expert and I definitely don't know what you will find there, but I would imagine somehow you get into the glove compartment if you cut a hole deep enough. And what are you going to use to create a reservoir for the soil and like the water? Some sort of pond lining plastic, I would say. Just to make sure no water or soil is escaping the reservoir, I would glue gun it to the sides of the hole, but I wouldn't even voluntarily cut a hole into my car. Just imagine the sun, the water, the soil breaking down the plastic, and suddenly you have mud being vomited on you by your glove compartment. And if the constant anxiety of the plastic tearing apart at any point is not enough, you still have to keep in mind that your plant you're trying and failing to grow in your car needs to be watered very differently due to not having drainage holes. There is still the stuff like plant diseases, repotting, fertilizing, but those don't have to do much with being in a car. Fertilizing and getting rid of insects is just simply annoying because you're in a car, and repotting is like not even a question here. Imagine you have successfully grown a houseplant in your car for some reason for years. It is thriving, it's living its best life, growing new leaves and a gorgeous root system. Now you have to repot it because it's outgrew its container. What you gonna do? Cut a bigger hole in your dashboard or put a new small plant into your car just to sacrifice another 5 years of your car for a little greenery? So no, there are some care things it's not worth to talk about here, but what if there is an option for successful gardening? I'm saying this like it's a call to action, but no. I just realized you can maybe successfully pull off gardening in those cars which are just constantly in a showroom indoors, which makes the inside of the car the same as inside of any room, so suddenly it went from a hostile environment incapable of nurturing life to a welcoming warm home for plants. That's an option. Believe it or not, this is not the first time someone thought plants in cars would make a great idea. Okay, I'm not saying the history section of this video is going to be the main portion of this video essay. It'll be rather like a 2% section or less, but I still gonna mention this too. So, the first venture into not really full-on gardening was done by Volkswagen. Their Beetle came with an optional extra flower vase, which later becomes standard. I mean, yeah, air freshener is a thing now, but it wasn't always. Masking engine smells with a fragrant flower in a tiny vase might seem like a ridiculous idea, yet it made its way to the market, so who am I to judge? So I could like spin the narrative here that okay, the paradigmatic happened, people were forced to stay inside, and instead of them going crazy, new hobbies and stuff were picked up, and like the fact that gardening was a big thing during the lockdowns, that's definitely undeniable. But I don't really think that combining gardening and keeping houseplants in cars was something that was just gonna happen anyways in a lockdown scenario. Lockdowns encouraging people to tend to their gardens and keeping houseplants is a very logical step. There's a much bigger gap if you want to jump from regular gardening to car gardening, especially if you're thinking in lockdown terms. So no, gardening would have happened either way. It's much more like a shock value trend than a real valuable life hack idea. And there's a lot to say about shock value trends for sure, which I'm gonna do. If you like this video, comment and subscribe. Just kidding, I'm not gonna talk about it. I hope this hoodie color actually makes you think that makes you envision that I'm sitting in a car, because I'm not sitting in a car.